Welcome to the Gruyter's book talk, CLARIN, the Infrastructure for Language Resources. My name is Svetoslava Antonova-Bauman, and I'm an acquisitions editor at the Gruyter. Today I'm going to talk with Professor Andreas Witt and Darja Fišer, and they are the two editors of the book. And at the same time, they're both part of the CLARIN consortium and also researchers in the field of digital humanities and digital linguistics. The book itself is going to be published in October. So what does CLARIN stand for? It stands for Common Language Resources and Technology Infrastructure. What this means is that it's a digital infrastructure that offers data, tools, and services in order to support research based on language resources. And the book itself presents an overview of the organization, the way it functions, its goals, as well as tools that are hosted by CLARIN. So a lot of scholars from other disciplines also work with language materials, which is where CLARIN resources come in. And therefore, the CLARIN infrastructure is interesting for other disciplines as well. So against this backdrop, my first question is, could you tell us a little bit about the connection between CLARIN, the book, and CLARIN, the infrastructure? So what was the motivation for publishing this volume?
The main motivation to work on the book was that we're a pretty large network of experts with a lot of experience and also a lot of activities in very different aspects of working with language and language data. And after this 10 years of experience, we realized that there's an impressive amount of results of the work done, and that this bottom-up approach that CLARIN has taken can really serve as a really good set of best practices as examples of what a field can achieve if they collaborate in such a setting. So we wanted to, on the one hand, take a look back at what has been achieved so far, take a look around us and see what our colleagues are doing, but also compile all our know-how, experience, results in a single volume so that other communities can learn about us and from us.
Just to follow up on that last point about other communities collaborating and maybe looking to CLARIN for inspiration, could you expand a little bit on that? Have you had any contact already with other research communities, and what other research communities are there that are interested in digital linguistics and in language resources?
Yes, we constantly have contact with communities other than the core natural language processing or linguistics community, because CLARIN is highly relevant for the broadest community of researchers in humanities and social science, because as you know, our main target or goal is to deal with language. And in humanities and social sciences, a lot of scholars, regardless of their disciplines or type of research questions, actually also work with language materials because language is such an important part of human existence. A lot of research basically looks at communication or old examples of language use, be it in newspapers, tweets, presidential speeches, etc., so that we are immediately and directly relevant for example, researchers working in history, political science, anthropology, social science, media studies, gender studies, etc., etc.
Yes, and to add on, we do have a large collection of different types of videos, of texts, of recordings of spoken language, and the spoken language recordings ranging from parliamentary speeches to casual conversation. As already mentioned, we have historical data. So if you are interested in yesterday's news from 200 years ago, you can find it in one of the resources. But we also have a registry of totally different things on the first glance, namely of courses for digital humanities that are offered in universities all over Europe. And this is something that helps researchers to learn to get into a new field, or from junior researchers to get ideas of what we are already doing and what is out there.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that there was also this resource for other researchers and students within the digital humanities, and that's such a hot button topic. And related to this, where did this interest in the digital humanities and digital linguistics, where do you see its spark coming from? Why is it that it's such an important issue at the moment?
Well, I think this field of digital linguistics is currently a very vibrant and growing field that is really interdisciplinary, as it brings together traditional linguists, but also experts from information technology as well as social sciences. And it looks at digital language data not from the perspective of how the computer can be as successful as possible with performing specific language related tasks, which is mainly the domain of computational linguistics. But it really basically focuses on the digital artifacts that use language as a means of human expression, how we can best preserve it, how we can best analyze it, and how we can best disseminate it.
So in a way, it's quite you mentioned this also, it's a very interdisciplinary approach, and it doesn't concern just one area of exploration. So on the one hand, we have this diversity of disciplines, but also from what I know from my experience with CLARIN, there's also a diversity in languages. Could you tell us a little bit about what resources on which languages are available in CLARIN?
Indeed, yes, we can. This is, first of all, CLARIN as a European infrastructure has partners all over Europe. So many institutions, like my home institution, the Leibniz Institute for the German Language, deal with their national languages or with their national language. But we also have resources from languages that are not spoken in Europe at all, and that are of special interest for several research areas. One of the starting points of CLARIN was an activity by Peter Wittenburg from then the Max Planck Institute of Psycholinguistics, and they run a large project called DOVIS. It was on the documentation of endangered languages, and you have plenty of languages with that are documented and that are only accessible or documented in such a project that gives us lots of language resources. But we also have sign language corpora that are used in the communication of large groups, for instance, German Sign Language, as far as I know, also American Sign Language. So we do have a large, broad range of resources and broad range of languages.
Yeah, this is fascinating that you have you've mentioned to cover such a diversity of not just the types of resources, but also the languages that they address. And I mentioned in the beginning that you're not the authors of this book, you are the editors. And that is kind of unusual for our book talks here at the Gruyter. We usually, or most of our book talks are with a single author of a monograph, so of a book. So from this perspective, it would be interesting for me to ask something about the editing process. Have there been any surprises, and how have you found it, editing this volume?
Yes, when we discussed, I think this was initially actually Andreas' idea to have this volume out. And when he approached me with the idea, I liked it immediately. But while we were composing the call for chapters, and until the deadline approached, we were all the time, I think, a little bit nervous, because we didn't really know what to expect. Would our community members actually feel they want to contribute to this book? Would we get enough submissions for a volume? And this was the first, I think, surprising part of the story, that the interest expressed just through the number of submissions was really a surprise to us. To see that amount of submissions was a sign that the community is not only very much alive, but that it is closely connected, that they strive towards the same goals. What we were also really excited about is that we could see such a broad range of work submitted. It was not just about how the CLARIN infrastructure works, how it is put together, but you can really see a whole part of the book, the last part, brings a lot of very useful chapters on how the CLARIN infrastructure has been successfully used in actual research. So this was, to both of us, I could say, a big surprise. And finally, a big surprise was also to see sometimes when you're busy with day-to-day stuff, you don't really appreciate and take a look back. So a big surprise was just from reading this range of chapters, how much has been accomplished in the last 10 years. The success from 10 years ago to today is something that is really an immense effort from everyone in the community. And finally, I think a big surprise and a big lesson learned for us was how much work editing such an immense volume actually takes. It is much more than the two of us could take on. So I'd really like to take the time to thank another colleague that has spent a lot of time on this project. And this is Jennifer Ecker from IDS, who has helped us put the book together as it is now. Without her help, it would be a long time before we could finish the job ourselves.
Well, I guess these sorts of projects reflect the nature of CLARIN itself, in that it's a collaborative effort. There are so many disciplines, people, languages, and resources involved. So that's very, very interesting to see that this is also reflected in the editing side of the story. And you mentioned that you had a lot of submissions. Does that leads us on to the next volume, I guess, in this series. Andreas, you being the series editor, could you give us a sneak peek of where do you see this series developing to, in what directions, and what can readers look forward to?
Yes, with pleasure. Indeed, the book is a great start from my point of view for the digital linguistics series. Just like digital linguistics is, as you have seen, a broad field, the series will also focus on broad aspects, on different aspects. Would also like to demonstrate the broad field somehow. The two further volumes, the next two volumes that are planned, are in fact quite different from the CLARIN book. So unlike CLARIN book, They are not anthologies, but monographs in the strict sense. So as you mentioned, we will have a more typical book talk maybe next year on one of these books. The next volume that is planned will be devoted to the legal and ethical issues when dealing with language data. It is currently written by Paweł Kamocki, and it will address various legal questions that affect language research, such as those related to copyright, data protection, as well as ethical questions in handling certain special categories of language data. So this is a large discussion that emerged due to the fact that we deal with large language resources, and for instance, bias in artificial intelligence and machine learning are things that are not legally prohibited, but lead to lots of ethical issues. And the following volume will be devoted to another important field when dealing with infrastructures or when dealing with digital linguistics. Namely, it is devoted to the aspect of standardization and standards in language data. And this is being written by Piotr Bansky, who also co-authored a chapter on standards together with Hannah Hedeland that is published in the CLARIN book. So that's essentially the plans for the next 2 volumes.
That's so much to look forward to. Thank you for that, and not least, thank you for taking part in this talk and taking the time. And we're very much looking forward to the publication of the CLARIN book that comes out on the 24th of October. And it will be available for download and purchase at thegruyter.com, but also in bookshops and other online providers. So yes, thank you so much.